I need a clicker. I need a clicker. This is it. Got it? Okay. Awesome. I'm thrilled to be here today. And I want to begin by going back to a moment that I think all of us remember 10 years ago. It was one of the most impactful sequences of events in human history. And I bet every one of us knows exactly where we were and what we were doing on that day. So let's start there.
For financial markets, if the latest Wall Street upheaval severely disrupts trading, the U.S. Federal Reserve has taken emergency steps to calm the markets as investment bank Lehman Brothers announced plans to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy today. Bankruptcy would mean the end of a 158-year-old company that survived world wars but could not outlast the global credit crunch.
Yeah, that's a little strange here. We're down 1.7% here, a loss of 37 points or so. Apple shares are just getting hammered this morning.
We're down by between 3 and 4.5% generally across these markets. Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate. We're red everywhere, essentially, down by 4-5%.
We're down over 16%. Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
The stock market is now down 21%.
Because we're now down 43%.
What in the world is happening on Wall Street?
Two-year note yields went from 190 to 166 in the blink of an eye.
I have never live looked at the Dow Jones Industrial Board and seen a 600-point loss.
Having said that, I think there could be a sentiment on the street that being an independent investment bank is not possible anymore. It shouldn't be possible anymore. And that fear, that emotion, may be enough.
So I remember where I was on that day, and I'm looking at some of the faces out in this audience, and I have a feeling that most of you remember exactly where you were and what you were doing on that day. It was terrifying. I don't know if anyone clocked it. Did anyone recognize the last voice in that little video montage? Anyone? No? Well, that was me. I was working at an investment research startup called Innovest at that moment, and 3 years prior to that day, we put out a report and launched a product which analyzed the rate at which people, the growth of real wages compared to the growth of consumer credit and mortgage credit in every zip code in the United States. And that was the first ever digital product I ever launched in my life. It was initiating coverage on the banking sector. And when we released that product, we came to a conclusion. It was foolish to evaluate banks by where they were in the league table lending money to people who had no business borrowing it. There was not just going to be a flattening of the mortgage market, there was going to be an explosion, and it was going to be hundreds of billions of dollars. And the banks that were going to be affected were going to be Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, Countrywide Financial, and Merrill Lynch. That was the first published report of what we now know as the 2008 financial crisis. That's the good news. The bad news was that it was the most terrifying moment of my entire life. Everything that we have come to understand as being true in a financial research startup, everything you've seen on Inc. magazine or in Fast Company with the loft space office and fancy purebred dogs running around and a buffet of delicious organic food, not the way it worked at Innovest. Our office was disgusting. Our toaster oven would explode every day. We had 20 people. There were definitely some moments where we were seriously freaked out about did we have enough revenue coming in to make payroll. And at that moment, in 2006, we had this gigantic prediction. But I'll tell you something. I loved everyone I was working with. It was a very fun environment, but I was 29 years old, and I was completely unqualified to have made that call. Well, I grew up pretty fast when you have the House Counsel of Lehman Brothers calling you at your office and saying, we're going to sue you, and we're going to have our asset management division cancel their contract with the startup that hired you. And we're going to name you personally in the lawsuit. That'll make you grow up. That'll get your attention. And at that moment, I called our CEO, Matthew Kiernan, to offer my resignation. And I remember him picking up the phone, and I said, Matthew, I am so sorry. I cannot believe I've put you in this prediction. I completely understand that you need to fire me. Most of our income is going to disappear if we continue to have this report out there. And Matthew said to me, well, hold on. Were you wrong? I said, I don't think so. I mean, we've been going over the data all day, and we've had other people go over it all day. It keeps giving us the same warning signals that this is not a sustainable market, that this market is going to collapse. I don't think it's wrong. I think they disagree with our conclusions, but I don't think they can discredit our facts. He said, good. I've been going over the same data myself, and it's pretty solid. So let me tell you what I've told them. If any of these banks carries through with the threat that they've issued, we are going to take out 2 full-page ads, one in the Financial Times and the other in the Wall Street Journal, where we publish your report and then we publish their rebuttal. I've told them that we are small, but we are not powerless, and people don't fight you this hard when you're wrong. So keep going and say it louder. So just forget about digital transformation. Anywhere Matthew Kiernan is on planet Earth, as long as I am alive, I'm going to write it into my will that any favor he wants, he can call on me and ask, because that is leadership, and that is loyalty, and that is a testament to the courage that's required for digital innovation in any institution. We had a culture of courage at Innovest. Since then, it's been 10 years, I have launched 33 products. I was the head of innovation at Bloomberg. I've launched products at Goldman Sachs, at Viacom, with Google, at PwC. I launched disruptive products in 8 weeks. That's what I specialize in. And that conversation where someone very powerful tries to stop something that you know the world needs to have has happened for every one of those products. And every one of them that succeeded, there is some way of finding a way through, of getting to the other side, of building a culture of courage where there's a community that emerges that is willing to transform the organization and transform the market that the organization works in. And I want to share that with you because courage is commonly misunderstood as something that you're just born with or you're born without, and that is not true. It is a system. There are a set of principles that you need to embrace and implement. And if we are going to be innovators in our institutions and in the fintech market, it is something that all of us need to embrace because the blockchain, artificial intelligence, agile, design thinking, all of those are dormant assets without courage. They accomplish nothing. They are expensive, shiny toys, but they are not powerful tools. Courage comes first. The first principle is urgency. A crisis is fertile soil for innovation to take root. We happen to live in a moment where there is an enormous cost of not innovating. Every day, some entrenched solution, some huge business loses market share, loses their most valuable customers, gets left behind because of new advancements in technology, because some new entrant came out of nowhere and found a problem that their customers needed to solve and couldn't solve with the incumbent solutions. The great entrepreneurs run into those burning buildings while everyone else is running out. I don't care if you are Amazon or Applebee's or you're Goldman Sachs or Golden Corral. Every company has a problem that it needs to solve and cannot solve if it does what it's always done. And the great entrepreneurs embrace those problems. They innovate with urgency. The second principle is never pitch an idea, only present an outcome. Ideas are really easy for someone to say no to. No executive risks anything if they say no to an idea. In fact, it might make them seem like they are the fierce defender of corporate values, like they have the foresight to see into the future and avoid certain disaster because of some reckless, innovative entrepreneur who wants to jeopardize core corporate values. I'm judging by some of the heads that nodded when I just said that. I think everyone in this organization has had a great idea get shot down for the wrong reasons. Outcomes are kind of different. There's a risk to saying no to an outcome. When you show up to a meeting when everyone else is pitching a PowerPoint deck and instead you show footage of having created a solution that solves a mission-critical problem in your market, and you show footage of people using that solution and deriving value from that solution, now there's a risk to saying no. Now you as an entrepreneur have leverage. Now the executive that stands in the way of that growing and expanding and escalating in an exponential way, now they're going to have to defend that decision. Pitch outcomes, not ideas. And when you do that, be empathetic. Because innovation is both birth and it's death. It's birth in that we are creating new and innovative solutions to entrenched problems that are differentiated, that have never been there before. And that act of creation is unbelievable. We should all experience it once. Death, because someone already thinks they're doing it already. And it's not just that they think they're doing it already. Their entire sense of personal and professional self-worth is intertwined with the fiefdom that they have built around creating that solution that you are now threatening to kill. And they don't not fight. They will always fight. As a startup, all of that opposition is on the outside of your organization. You are the pirate ship, everyone else is the Navy. But when you're innovating inside of a huge company, that opposition is internal. The product is inside of the four walls of your organization. And we have to be prepared to navigate that backlash. One of the things that I've seen throughout my life as an entrepreneur, throughout my life as a product innovator in the Fortune 100, is that single fact is the thing that every entrepreneur gets wrong the first time. They build the technology without preparing for the fact that there's people that don't want it to win. I've attended so many product funerals where great products that solved an essential mission-critical problem, where the results were indispensable for the organization to thrive and survive. I've attended funerals because the person that invented those products failed to realize that there is someone else inside the company that thought they should be doing it. Don't be unprepared for that inevitable backlash. And the fast eat the slow. If you can't launch in 8 weeks, you never will. And I want to just point to this photograph to explain what I mean by that. This is one of the most incredible things I've ever experienced. This is a cash flow management product that I launched with Google and PwC about 2.5 years ago. That's me on the right-hand side with my nose, touching my nose. But there's everything you need to know about what you should build in an 8-week sprint. You can kind of identify right here. So that's me. That's market validation. So within 1 week, we had a digital clickable prototype of an app. The cash flow management solution essentially enabled small businesses to monitor all of the invoices that they had outstanding or needed to send to their clients. And additionally, it gave them very sound and structured advice about how to collect those invoices and make sure that there were no late payments. It basically synthesized all of PwC's cash flow management tools and synthesized it into a single iOS app that lived on an iPhone, and it was very powerful. And in week 1, we had the clickable prototype. In week 2, we had it built on a staging server. In week 3, we had social media ads and had about 1,000 signups for something that didn't even exist really yet. And what you're looking at in that bottom screen, the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, is when we hit that milestone, that beautiful moment in time of any product in week 5, where 9 out of 10 users knew exactly what button to press. They knew exactly where they were going to go next. The app was working. And when we flipped the phone over and said, if you had to describe this to a friend, how would you describe it? Consistently, they said, this is something that is a mission-critical tool that solves a problem that all the accounting software does not solve. It is a relationship app with financial functionality, and we need it now. Now we knew that we were onto something. Now we knew that PwC had a good reason to keep investing in this. But there were some problems with that. I want to point something out. That's Anthony Venta. I've called him my punk. Every product has a punk in it. So the night before this event, I took Anthony Venta out for a very fancy and expensive dinner because I needed him to wear a shirt with buttons for the meeting with PwC's board. Normally, when Anthony Venta shows up at work, he's wearing whatever concert he was at the night before. Both of his arms are covered in tattoos. He's very hygienic, but he's tough. And he's a pure punk rock guy. He also happens to be the most brilliant digital designer I've ever worked with in my life. To put that into context, it is Anthony Venta that created the digital designs of the prototype that were built within 1 week of kicking this project off. And a week after that, it was he that coded the entire thing so that it was plugged in and into an actual app rather than just a staging server. And it was he that tied all the data and built the server so we could go live with our first 1,000 beta test clients. He's amazing, but I needed him to act like he was not a pirate for this meeting because that's Dave Pittman. He was the godfather of this product. Dave Pittman, if you work in PwC, Dave Pittman is a legend. He, before PwC was a strategy consulting firm, it was simply an accounting firm. And it was Dave Pittman that was the founding partner that built a strategy consulting arm that could go head to head against the McKinseys and the Boston Consulting Groups of the world. He was the founding partner that created PwC Japan. Everyone in the organization knew who he was, respected him, and owed him a favor. We would have never gotten off the ground if it wasn't for Dave Pittman rooting for us, protecting us. Because that's Brian Sheehan. Brian Sheehan was the head of cash flow management, is still the head of cash flow management for PwC. And he wasn't too thrilled about this product. He was a very good guy. I liked him a lot. I still like Brian Sheehan a lot. But initially, he was concerned, first of all, there was so much about PwC's core cash flow management practice that did not fit in the app. And he was concerned that we were leaving out essential functionality that would discredit the solutions that he's providing to his Fortune 100 clients. So there was some brand risk as far as he was concerned. The second thing was, what if we were right? At what point do you launch a cash flow management solution and then watch it start to get big enough and gain traction enough where suddenly some of the Fortune 100 clients inside of PwC start using it and don't need PwC anymore? Now there's a risk involved. If it wasn't for Dave Pittman taking Brian Sheehan out for dinner and saying, Brian, I need you to give us some space. I need you to let this work. I need you to give us some time with this. If it wasn't for that, none of this would have ever gotten off the ground. And that kind of godfather who has the power to sort of have that conversation with the obstructionists, the people that are skeptical, and the ability to convert them into allies was mission critical. And it was at this meeting when we showed Brian Sheehan the results of where we had gotten to, where we had digital footage of people using the app, deriving value from it. That was the moment where Brian said, you're absolutely right. The biggest risk to my business is that this digital solution gets built outside of the four walls of this organization. But right now I have an opportunity to participate in its growth. I'm completely on board. I didn't see that at first. That's what you can build in 8 weeks. And it's one of the most incredible moments of entrepreneurial magic you can ever imagine, because it's not just about what you build. Yeah, we built a digital app in a very short amount of time. That's not the cool part. The cool part, the part that is exponentially monumental, is that you take a 180-year-old accounting firm and you turn it into an engine of innovation. You give a new kind of leadership a voice. And that's one of the most incredible moments of entrepreneurial magic anyone can ever experience. I would say that it's better than anything you can experience in a startup. So I wrote my book, This Might Get Me Fired. I go and I speak on stages like this all over the world, and I don't do it because of vanity or gratuitous self-promotion. I do it because I think everyone who has the wiring of an entrepreneur, who works in a large corporation, should do the best work of their life, the most creative work of their life. Be the best entrepreneur they can be, because the world needs you to do that. Your company needs you to do that. Yes, they are going to fight you on it. Yes, there are cultural barriers that you need to push past. But we can all start to create that transformation in our organizations right now. That's why I do what I do. I want to be of service, to empower everyone who is capable of doing that, to enable them to do it. So, there's a couple of very tangible things that we can do to start this together. One, I'm going to be here today and tomorrow. Hang out with me. I'm around. Let's grab a drink. If anyone has any questions, if you're wrestling with any of the issues that I have pointed out here, grab a beer, take me aside, tell me what's on your mind. I would love to help. Work with me. So I run workshops, I give talks, and I launch products for every Fortune 100 company. I'm going to be in Chile, Peru, and Colombia for the last 2 weeks of October. If there's a few spots left, but if any of you are in those countries or nearby, like in Buenos Aires, let me know. I'd love to come out. There's a very few spots left, so please make sure you get in touch while we're here to let me know if that's something that's of interest. Email me. I am greg@bowery315.com. Put in the subject heading Fintech 2018, and you will get a response from me. Finally, read my book. The book is This Might Get Me Fired, I think. Yes? Okay. I'm going to be signing those books after the next talk. Also, I think, did you hand out the survey forms? No? Yes. Okay, great. So if you have those surveys, I genuinely want to hear how I'm doing and how I can improve and what resonates for you. Please fill those surveys out. You can hand them to me anyway, but if you want, come up to me when I'm signing books, hand me the survey. I'm going to sign you a book and write you a beautiful note. But I genuinely want to get those cards. It's really important for me to hear from you. And finally, I'm going to give you a homework assignment. Is that cool? Yeah. Look, if everyone here emerged from this conference and you find two people that you establish some sort of rapport with, you see eye to eye with one another, and you take one another and you commit together to challenge one another to do something that you know you have to do inside of your organization, to do something that's very difficult, and you commit to holding one another accountable to achieving that result, that you're going to follow up and you're going to do something that seems impossible but is absolutely mission critical, that scares you to death. Everyone, this will be the greatest conference you've ever attended in your entire life, if that's what comes out of it. You will build a community of courage just from reaching out to two people and emerging with that kind of camaraderie, that kind of community. It's the most powerful thing you can do with one another. Because every time we see the ribbon-cutting ceremony of a new product coming out of a company like Goldman Sachs or Amazon or Google or JP Morgan Chase or Capital One, we see the ribbon-cutting ceremony. We see the jump in their stock price. But we don't know who built it. We don't know how it got built. We don't go back to that moment where someone stepped forward and said, I know that this is going to be incredibly difficult. I know that really powerful and entrenched people and processes stand in the way of getting this done. I know that I'm taking a personal risk by doing this. And I'm doing it anyway. That is one of the most heroic and unheralded moments of entrepreneurial bravery in any domain. Startups, government, corporations, that is misunderstood and it's unheralded, and we all together have an opportunity to create that courage, to create that momentum, and to accomplish great things together. I hope we can. Thank you very much.